Welcome everyone to Depression to Expression. My name is Scott. Books. Books are good for you. Books make you smarter. Books are when you're a loner and have no friends. Books are great for the soul. Books are great for the mind. And I'm going to share with you four books that changed my life forever. Forever. If you know what I just did there, please comment and I'll respond. Before we get started, if you haven't subscribed to Depression to Expression, this is a mental health channel where we have an honest dialogue about mental health by educating and inspiring people to express themselves freely with confidence. Book number 1, we have the Magic Bullet Single Shot 10-Second Recipe Book. Just kidding. The very first book, which I'm sure you'll recognize if you watch the bookshelf tour, is Gary Paulson's The Hatchet. Look at that picture. Now, the reason this is on my list is because I read this in grade 5, and this was the thickest book I ever read by then, believe it or not. It's 191 pages, size 14 font. But this was a book of fiction that I finally escaped into. Now, before I was read to, and my parents read to me, family members, and I got through some other books, but The Hatchet was the first one that I really experienced that escapism you get when you read fiction, when you read a book where you actually can't put it down. It was a page turner. I wanted to know what happened next. I felt like I knew the characters. I felt like I was in the wilderness with Brian Robson. So this is a book about Brian. He's on a plane. The pilot has a heart attack. He lands in the wilderness and has to survive on his own, and all he has is a hatchet to survive. And man, it's like you're in the woods with him. You're hunting with him. You're trying to make a fire with him. The author just does such a great job of you getting into that mood with Brian Robson. I would highly recommend this book, but this was a life changer. And in grade 5, man, what is that? 9 years old? Or 10? It was just the very first time, again, I experienced what reading could do for me, what fiction could do. And it took me a long time, a very long time, to get the same experience I did with this book of fiction again. It did. I had to read Lord of the Rings years later. Ender's Game was another one, Life of Pi was another one, but the one that really got me back into fiction, which I read in my 20s for the very first time, was the Harry Potter series. That blew my mind. Blew my mind. I was like, what are these kids talking about? These Harry Potter weirdos with their broomsticks and their spells and their wands. And then I'm like, I read the first one and I said, oh yeah, it is amazing. So this book was the Kickstarter to all fiction. Gary Paulson's The Hatchet. The second book that I'd like to talk to you about today that completely changed my life is, we gonna get a little religious here, The Case for Christ. This was recommended by an evangelical Christian that I know. Hi, if you're watching. And she loves Jesus. She does. And she's like, Scott, read this book. Maybe it'll help you love Jesus too. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm on the fence about Christianity and religion in general. Is there a God? Was Jesus just a guy who wore some flip-flops and people liked him? And he was finally the only one who was nice to women back then. So people were like, holy crap, he's nice to women. What a rebel. That's cool. He must be the son of God. And then she said, read this book. And it's called The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. And it goes into every kind of objection that people would have against the New Testament, about the existence of Jesus, about really the resurrection. Did this guy rise from the dead? Was the tomb empty? What is the evidence for this? And it goes into quite some detail, and even it's really cool. At the end of the book, there's interview questions that Lee goes through. And it's everything that wasn't covered in the book. It's like, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? Common objections, even at the end, which is really cool for him to do. But I just want to go through some of the names of the chapters for everyone, just so you get a feel for what this book was about. So of course with the New Testaments you have the gospel, spreading the good news. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So you have eyewitness evidence, right? Can the biographies of Jesus be trusted? All right. Is there credible evidence for Jesus outside his biographies, outside the Gospels? Does archaeology confirm or contradict this? This goes back into the archaeology. When the manuscripts were found versus when Jesus died, for what kind of timeline gap was that? And is that actually great evidence to have for the New Testament, right? How many copies were made? It goes through all of this stuff. Was Jesus' body really absent from his tomb? Anyways, I'm not saying that this converted me to Christianity. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that it gave me a new perspective and it made me think about things that I hadn't thought about before. So this really changed my perspective on Jésus-Christ. Now for the third book, I can't believe I'm actually going to show you this one. It's so cliche, it's so overread? Not overread. What am I trying to say? It's The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and you've seen this book before. Every YouTuber has done a review on this book, and this is like the top self-help book of all time, and again, it's a cliche, but at the same time, at the time I read it, this was the first time, in 2008, I read this book, and reread it many times. It's because it was with the Oprah book club, so everyone's like, who's Eckhart Tolle? What? Oprah likes it? Sweet, then it must be good. This was the first time I heard about the present moment. Like, really, I had no idea that was a thing. And to be honest, life maybe was a little more simple before I knew about this whole movement of being in the present moment. It's like there's pressure to be in the present now. What the hell is going on? What was wrong with how I was living before? Again, it opened up my mind to some new ideas about the power of now and what it means to be present, how we can deal with negative thoughts, right? How we can deal with worries about the future, over analyzing what happened in our past, and living with regret, and what happiness actually means. And I like the way it's written, because it's really just a Q&A. That's all it is. There's questions and then he answers them. Is presence the same as being? How can we drop negativity as you suggest? In that state of wholeness, will we still be able to or willing to pursue external goals, right? And he just answers these questions. This changed my life because, again, it was the first time I heard about what present living actually is and how it was explained really well. The book does go into this sense of being and the ego and more spiritual than I actually really liked. I can't really wrap my head around that. It is under the personal growth and spirituality category. It got a little too spiritual for me, right? However, I would totally recommend this book to anyone, although it's been reviewed many times and recommended by everyone. If you still haven't read it, it is popular for a reason. It's great. It's great. The fourth book in that theme of present living, I then founded this idea. I discovered this idea of mindfulness. I had no idea what it was. I've heard the word before, but didn't know what it was all about. So, of course, I got this one. Wherever you go, there you are. Mindfulness Meditation in Everyday Life by Jon Kabat-Zinn. If you're new to mindfulness, if you're new to meditation, and you want to know more, I did a workshop, and this was a book that I recommended in our mindfulness workshops. More on that later. We're going to be doing another one. If you missed the last one, well, just email me if you're interested in a new mindfulness workshop that I do with a therapist out in Vancouver, Julia Christina. But a lot of people got a lot out of it. This is one of the books I recommended to continue their mindfulness journey and learn more about it. Wow, I just flipped this. I flipped to this page randomly. That's cool. And it's highlighted too. Meditation means cultivating a non-judging attitude towards what comes up in the mind, come what may. Beautiful definition of meditation. And it's just a bunch of different exercises, mindfulness exercises that you do throughout the day. And I love just the titles of the chapters. It's like, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf, right? Getting your body down on the floor at least once a day. I actually do that. The mountain meditation talks about posture and how you sit and stand and being mindful that way. Talks about sitting meditation, going inside the mind and body, voluntary simplicity. It just, chapter by chapter, it's just, I talked about fiction and the hatchet being a page turner. This, it's like every line you sit and contemplate and think about. It's very powerful, and I definitely read it more than once. Would highly recommend it if you want to get down to business with your mindfulness journey. Fantastic book. The reason this book changed my life was because, again, mindfulness was a new term. And mindfulness, practicing ever since 2009, has been a blessing. It's completely changed the way I view my own thoughts, how I create space within my mind between thoughts and reality, and just voluntary simplicity. I think that's what really hit me with this book and how I live now. There's beauty in simplicity. There's beauty in just seeing life for what it is and not what it should be or could be all the time. It's taking a breath and not having to be in control all the time. It's really, really helped the anxiety I experience and also depression. So that was a big, big life changer for me in starting mindfulness. I love this mug so much. I freaking love it. So those are the 4 books I would recommend. And also, if you do have a magic bullet, make sure you get that recipe book for 10-second recipes. Now, the 4 books, yeah, if you want to look into them, Amazon, your local bookstore, they're everywhere. But I'd really ask you to comment and maybe let me know what books changed your life. Self-help books, fiction, fantasy, you know, history, it doesn't matter. What books have made an impact on your life? I would love to hear from you, okay? This has been Scott from Depression to Expression. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. There's mental health videos every single week here, and I'd love to see you in the comments and chat with you. Again, we have an honest dialogue about mental health, and I'd want you to be part of that. So stay strong, keep being you, and don't forget to express yourself.